Back. Was it just
Hello,
me?
guys. Yes, something froze there in a second. Richard looks as if he's still frozen there. You can hear me, Barry, can't you?
I hear you. I kept refreshing to get back in.
Okay, that's great. Okay, I'm sure Richard will do that in a second there. We'll let Richard do that just now. I'm going to just put my hand up like that in the camera just so I can check that the stream that I'm watching is still actually live on Facebook. Yes, it is. So we're still live on Facebook at the moment. Sorry, there seems to have been a little bit of a glitch with Facebook there, but that's okay. We are back now. So you haven't missed anything at all. We're just about to start the proper recording of everything. So we've got Richard that's going to dial back in just in a second. These live glitches do happen. That's the fun of doing live video. But I'm pretty sure that we'll be fine from now on. Give Richard just a second or two to get back in. We have got quite a few things to talk about, so if Richard doesn't come back in pretty soon, we're going to get started in the next 30 seconds or so. So that's not... sorry, I'm getting messages here just asking me if everything's okay. I'm sure everything's okay because I can see what's happening on Facebook Live. So Barry can hear me. We're streaming live. Let me turn the. There we go. I just turned the audio up on my own version of the live show, so I know we're actually streaming live now. So I'm sure Richard will make it back in at some point here. But what I'm just going to do, Barry, is just start the proper recording of the podcast, and the fact that you're watching live, you're getting all this bonus. So here we go. We're going to start the proper recording.
Wait, just a second. Richard thinks everything's fine. I'm just going to tell him to refresh that page.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, so whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So Richard just needs to refresh his page. That's fine. Barry's just asking him to do that. I'm sure he'll do that. I'm sure he'll back in a second. But I'm going to start the proper show just now. Google launches a More Results button for mobile. Search Console adds search appearance filters. Bing Ads launches price extensions. And Google unveils a vetting process for drug rehab ads. Broadcasting live on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, this is Search Marketing Scoop, the SEMrush show that brings together the top PPC and SEO folk to discuss the current search headlines and how they impact you. I am your host, David Bain, and let's meet at least one of today's guests, and hopefully the other guest in a little bit here. So first up, some people call him an SEO legend. He just calls himself a search geek. He is the CEO of Rusty Brick. Welcome to the Scoop, Barry Schwartz.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Barry. Great to have you here. And we will introduce guest number 2, I'm sure, in a little bit. He was kicked out of the recording software a short time ago, and I'm sure he's going to join us again in a second. So when he does so, I will introduce him. But let's just go straight to Barry for story number 1. And that is, Google have launched a new More Results button, which they say makes it faster and easier to get more results, more search results on mobile. So, Barry, is this a better user experience?
I don't know if it's better. Google's calling it better. I guess it's based on how Google's looking at their data. So they've been testing this, based on my knowledge, for at least a couple of years on and off. And then they actually expanded this test drastically at the beginning of April. And I guess they've been collecting a lot of data. And based on the data, they say that people rather click on the More Results button than clicking on the Next Page button in the Google mobile results. So I suspect that based on all the data that Google's looking at, that people are more likely to go to the next page of the search results if they click on the more results button versus clicking on the next page button.
Now, some people may be surprised that Google didn't actually go for an infinite scroll option instead of actually another button at the bottom. At least that's what my thinking was. What do you think the reasons why Google decided to actually click on this more results button instead of actually just having an infinite scroll?
That's a good question. I know that Google has tested also the infinite scroll option in the past. The question, but now they're actually they decided to go with this more results button. So maybe they're doing that just to go ahead and say there was actually intent from the user to actually load more results. It's kind of the same reason why, or maybe they're just saying infinite scroll is not a way of testing and seeing how many search results a user actually loaded on the page or if they went to the next page. So maybe some of their internal metrics use the data saying, oh, they clicked to the next page and the search result is no longer that good, or maybe the search results on the first page aren't good, resulting in them the searcher actually having to click on the second page results. So maybe if it's just an infinite scroll, they wouldn't get a valuable metric from that action of some searcher saying, show me more results. Maybe the option of a searcher saying, show me more results doesn't look good for the 10 search results that Google showed previously. And that might be a signal that Google could use to say, let's take a look at these search results and see how we can improve them. That's my theory. Because like you said, it's very, very easy for Google just to have infinite scroll as people are scrolling through the search results. But I do think that Google's specifically wanting the searcher to actually click on the more results button to get that feedback and saying, well, I'm not happy with these previous results. I want to see more results.
Got you. And do you think that this may have any impact on the number of links that are actually clicked on from the SERP? Or is this going to be likely to be relatively the same as this next and previous buttons?
Yeah, so it's hard to know if it's going to have any impact on getting more clicks and so forth. I really don't know. I can't imagine most people will click on that more results button. I suspect people will say, hey, this looks new, and they might click on it because it looks new for the first few weeks, and then people will become accustomed to it and not click on it. And the thing is, if you don't find the search result that you're looking for in the first few results, and there's been study after study that say, people aren't clicking on the number 9 position or clicking on the number 12 position. So it's hard to tell. Obviously, Google has that data. I don't have access to that data. But if you do look at, I guess, the Google Search Console data, and you're able to filter mobile, you might be able to see if there's a difference in terms of click-through rates on your page 2 results versus your page 1 results. And nobody has really done a study on that yet.
Now, talking about mobile, I think it would be remiss of me to have Barry on the show without getting a comment from him about Google's mobile-first indexing. So are you able to summarize any kind of impact that you're seeing from this so far, Barry?
So it's interesting. So Google, I think a few weeks ago, said they're going to start rolling it out. I asked Google about it. Did it roll out? They said, not just yet, but we will soon, even after they announced it started to roll out. And then I've been watching the communities and the different tools and different things out there to track to see if anything actually shifted or anything like that. And I haven't seen anybody come out and say, hey, I'm in the mobile first index, or it's not really called the mobile first index, but I'm in the mobile first indexing process. I haven't seen anybody come out and say that, which is very interesting. Also, nobody received those Search Console notifications saying we switched your website from desktop first indexing to mobile first indexing. We haven't seen anybody actually get a Search Console notification of that either. There are some people always complaining about ranking changes and so forth and algorithm changes and so forth, but I don't believe a significant number of sites have yet switched to the mobile first indexing process yet, at least based on what I'm tracking.
Okay, great. And talking about impact, we're seeing a lot of flux in the SEMrush sensor over the last couple of days. So we're currently riding at a very high score of 9.3 out of 10. So, I mean, Barry, do you have any thoughts on what's being impacted and what SEOs really should be doing with this kind of information?
So it's very soon. This just came up yesterday. A lot of people are talking about it. It's hard to say within a matter of a couple of days what this is related to. It's very hard in general to say what these shifts or these fluctuations in Google are related to ever, because Google has so many things going on. So I'm not really seeing people saying, hey, this is related to links or related to low quality content, although people have been saying that in general. I've seen somebody say this is targeting black hat links. Some people are saying it's targeting low quality backlinks. Some people are saying it's low quality content. Some people are saying it's a reversal of the Fred update. Some people are saying it's a reversal of the what we call the Maccabees update. A lot of people are saying different things, which leads me to believe that it's none of that, because so many people are saying so many different things. It's hard to say specifically what niche or what types of tactics are being targeted by this, or even if this is just some type of bug with the Google search results, where Google might flip it and say, oh, we made a mistake, we're going to flip it back. It's hard to say. But one thing we do know is that a lot of people are talking about this update. I wouldn't consider this to be as big as any of those Panda or Penguin updates, or even as the Fred or Maccabees update. It definitely is not as big as those. I would say it's probably more related to a smaller update that might be impacting a smaller number of websites out there than a typical larger update.
Got you. Okay, so there's nothing really specific that we can take from this at the moment. I guess because it's just happened over the last couple of days, it's very difficult to get definitive information about what has changed, what's changed, and has stayed changed as well. So I mean, what's typically a good length of time to actually wait until after a flux has happened before you're able to actually determine more accurately what has actually happened?
So there's two things. Obviously, if this update impacted your specific site, there's all these SEO audits and things you could do to go through a checklist to make sure it's not a technical issue, it's not a link issue, it's not a content issue. You can go through these checklists for your own website. On the higher level, to say, this specific update, like Panda was specifically around low quality content and stuff like that. Penguin was more about links. Without Google telling us specifically what it is, we can come up with our own theories. Like with Fred, Google wouldn't confirm it. I named it, or Gary from Google kind of named it. And I basically collected hundreds and hundreds of websites that said they were hit by this. And based on that, I was able to say, you know what? It looks like it's related to content. Sometimes I look at a bunch of sites and say, there's hundreds of sites that complained, and it looks like they were doing some shady link stuff. So at the aggregate, it's much harder to tell what this was specifically targeting, because you need to get a lot of websites. And you also have to say, two different algorithms didn't have to happen the same day. And Google sometimes will say, all right, we updated our link detection tools or spam tools, and we also updated our qualifiers around content, or maybe it was related somewhat to the mobile first indexing. It's hard to say. But when it comes to a specific site getting hit, you could actually go through a nice checklist. Just Google SEO audits or SEO audit checklist and find some tools out there like SEMrush and stuff like that to help you through that process relating to figuring out what's wrong with your website.
Right, okay. And when you talk about figuring out what's wrong with your website and actioning those insights that you can actually get, how quickly should an SEO actually make a change to their website based upon something that they see happening, based upon Google maybe favoring something like a local pack or some segment of the SERP a little bit more? How big a fluctuation do you have to see before you think, wow, this is significant and this is potentially long term, so I should definitely think of how I'm going to optimize for these new criteria?
So what I recommend is watch your traffic and go. Basically, I wouldn't go ahead and start running through the halls, screaming your head off and going crazy. Just when it comes to your website, it's really about looking at, did you make, the first thing I would look at is, did you make any code uploads, any changes to your website, anything significant change in your source code, look at your Git repository, whatever it might be, to see what has changed. Outside of that, if no major changes have been made to your website and your traffic has died significantly, you might want to just take some time, see if things change over the next few weeks before you make any drastic changes to your website. You can post your website in different online SEO forums. Google has an official forum. You can ask people to review it that way. Obviously, check your manual actions. See if you have any concerns around any spam issues. But typically, if you're doing everything white hat and nothing has significantly changed with your website, I wouldn't go ahead and go crazy about the update outside of just looking to see if you made any code database changes or anything to your website that structurally might have changed how Google might access your website.
Great advice there. Although I preferred your run for the hills advice instead, but obviously a lot of people can reactively make things worse if they're not too careful. Google could be testing some things. There could be just some subtle things that impact something for a couple of days, but then it reverts back to the original way of ranking things. And if suddenly you change your website too fast, too quickly, that I guess you don't know what's actually made the change, and you're perhaps going to get yourself into deeper water because of it. I think Richard may be here. Hello, Richard.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Wonderful. Okay, so we've had a great discussion, about mobile indexing and about what to do if there's been a bit of an algorithm update. But I reckon it's time to go to Richard for story number 2, and that is Bing ads have launched price extensions, the ability to add prices to both desktop and mobile text ads, as long as you have the same price actually on the landing page itself. So, Richard, what are your initial thoughts on this? I mean, is this potentially going to have a big impact on ad performance?
Well, the first thing to say is that it's Bing, so in terms of the size of the impact on a business as a whole, that's in the UK anyway, which is where I mostly work. The size of the impact is limited because of the size of the market share of the engine is pretty small. In terms of ad performance, I think some people will see a big boost with this, and some people are gonna struggle a bit in some markets where the users are already